Let me tell you about one of the most effective social influence tactics I know. I once gave a talk like this at an advertising agency, and I was going through some of the different tactics, and the guy said, just cut to the bottom line. What's the most powerful way you know to persuade somebody? And the answer is, have them persuade themselves. Subtly design the situation so they're coming up with arguments in support of your position, and thereby persuade him or herself. It works because the generation of arguments is more memorable. People in that situation are motivated to counter-argue any bad arguments. Through this act, they become committed to the course of action. And what is can you name a more credible source than me? And I don't mean me, I mean you. So let's see this in action. This was one of the first social influence campaigns I know of. It was done by the founder of my field, Kurt Lewin, who escaped the Nazis in 1932, proudly came to America, received tenure for the first time in his life. He could never receive that in Germany under the regime. And he was so proud to be American, his first set of research was on the nature of democracy. This set of studies, known as the Sweetbreads studies, were done at the behest of Margaret Mead. During World War II, we had shortages of food, shortages of resources. And Margaret Mead was in charge of a committee to build Americans' morale through World War II. So she was in charge of doing those victory gardens and sort of things. And the victory gardens are great, got people eating vegetables. But what about protein? So Margaret Mead came to Kurt Lewin and said, can you get people to eat sweetbreads? What are sweetbreads? Yes. I see some disgusting faces. They're the meat that most people throw away, the livers and the kidneys and the brains. So how did Kurt Lewin persuade? The first thing he did is something that we see all the time, I've seen a couple times here, is he analyzed how people were making their food decisions, how things got actually onto the table, and he identified the person who was making that decision, housewives. So he brought housewives into the lab, and he had a graduate student, Alex Bevelis, who was very good as a trainer, facilitator, and he ran two sets of groups. One group got a lecture on sweetbreads and the value of eating sweetbreads for our country. You know, there is a war going on. We need to be eating protein. Sweetbreads are the answer. Yes, they smell when they cook them, but you can cover up that smell with candles. Here's some tasty recipes. This is for the war effort. The other half of the group got self-generated persuasion. He came in and said, you know, there's a war effort going on, and we just don't know how to deal with it. How do we convince housewives like yourselves to eat sweetbreads? Could you help us come up with arguments, with reasons why people should eat sweetbreads? And so they're in that group. They feel the patriotic pressure. They say, oh, you've got to tell them there's all these great recipes. I've got this recipe. I've got this recipe. You've got to tell people there's a war effort going on. You've got to tell them, sometimes it smells and your husband will get upset, but here's some ways to deal with it. Now, these two groups, Bevelis would match them for information, so the information was always constant across groups. The only thing that differed is these folks were told. These folks self-generated. The result, 11 times more people serve sweetbreads in the self-generated condition than in the other condition.